Hey, so I have a bit of a problem. I recently found out that I am in fact the father of 100 children, and now I have responsibilities. Like all fathers, it is my duty to ensure my kids grow up strong and capable. After some thought, I decided what better way to prepare them for the trials of life than by driving them out into the woods, kicking them out of my car and saying, "Good luck." One of them protested and said, "You can't do this, we're only 3. Nay, nay, child. You are already 3. Time to earn Papa's love. In today's Rimworld challenge, I am pitting 100 3-year-old children against the elements in an attempt to survive for 1 year. Will they succumb to nature's wrath, or will the indomitable human spirit persevere? Now, before we jump into things, I have to quickly ask all of you to become very comfortable with the idea of toddler death. I mean very comfortable, because I'm kind of shit at Rimworld, and we're only shooting for like a 20% survival rate here, so... We landed on the rim with 100 3-year-old boys and girls. To keep you guys at home from getting too attached, I elected not to give them names. Much like the average US senator, these children have 0 actual skills and tend to enjoy scribbling on the floor over a hard day's work. We landed them with a variety of construction supplies and a large stockpile of packaged survival meals to get them started. The majority of the children were sent to toil in the fields to start building up our food stockpiles for the coming winter. Because I feel it isn't in the spirit of the challenge, I am not utilizing nutrient paste dispensers for this playthrough. The rest of the children were sent to begin building a shelter in the shadow of a nearby mountain, as well as construct a food storage room. As night fell on the first day, the children slept where they could, many of them choosing to sleep on the uncomfortable ground under the stars. As we entered into the second day, many children were unable to cope with their newfound situation and began having mental breaks. Like any good father, I elected to ignore their cries of anguish. Being sad builds character. To improve their living standards, the children took it upon themselves to construct a mess hall, and then began working on an altar, so that way they could pray that Dad was just kidding when he said, "See y'all next year." Through expert calculations and mathematical prowess, I was able to devise a bed chamber that perfectly fits 99 children. That's a little frustrating. It was about this time when we received a notification. We were being raided. We drafted all the children we could, and we sent them off to battle. This man showed up alone for the raid, and while he had a weapon, we had the numbers. Like something out of a Minecraft YouTuber's wildest fantasy, Nicholas stood alone against a swarm of naked toddlers. The children rushed towards him, and while he struck the first blow, stabbing one girl in the chest and cutting off the arm of another, he was unable to fend off the sheer quantity of young fists that pummeled him. While we were able to treat the young girl whose arm was cut off, unfortunately, the one who was stabbed quickly succumbed to her wounds, and we experienced the first death in our colony. Guess that solves the bed problem. The children buried the fallen girl and held a vigil to honor her, the first young hero to die in the defense of the colony. Following the funeral, a flash storm broke out that started several wildfires. Naturally, many of our little dipshits found themselves running around, playing in the fire, and quickly finding out why that's not a good idea. As the flames subsided, the children finished construction of their bed chambers and began working on a kitchen, as the first of our rice harvests were coming in and we would need to start cooking. To power the kitchens, we built some wood fire generators. Somehow, crafting 99 beds adequately prepared our children to construct and perform feats of electrical engineering. Don't question it. We then constructed a few research benches where the children began folding and unfolding the same few pieces of paper in some strange ritual in order to hopefully glean some archaic knowledge that has so far eluded their tiny minds. While our society was rapidly developing, we did suffer one unfortunate event during this time of relative stability. A boy developed an infection in his arm and soon died from it. We held another funeral for him and then continued on with the work. It was around this time we finally ran out of packaged survival meals and were now fully dependent on our rice production and cooks to make meals for our colonists. Cooling units were also added to each of the major rooms to keep temperatures down throughout the base and avoid heat stroke, and floors were constructed throughout the settlement to improve the appeal of the colony. The children truly were in a golden age of progress, their home now having power, cooling units, production, beds, even an altar. Truly all the trappings of modern society. They were on the uptick, and nothing was going to ruin this. Another raid, much bigger than the last one, this time with 4 pigmen, armed with guns and grenades. I once again rallied the legion of toddlers and marched them out to meet the enemy, fully anticipating several casualties here. But to my surprise, nobody died. Our children, shockingly quickly actually, beat the 4 pig people to death and walked away with only a few bruises and bumps. We collected the weapons from the corpses of the pig people, further increasing the power of our military, and then treated ourselves to a nice bacon-based dinner. Little did I know, this raid would mark the end of our colony's golden age, and the start of an economic downturn, the likes of which we never could have imagined. The day after the raid, we got a notification that both a wolf and a lynx were hunting 2 of our children at the same time. We rallied whoever was nearby and sent them off to deal with the animals. We successfully killed the beasts, but not before losing 2 more of our colonists, who were buried in the ever-growing cemetery. Then, a new problem started to emerge. We did not, in fact, have enough cooks to keep up with the cooking demands. So many of the children were stuck eating raw rice, which is much less efficient than eating cooked meals. The cotton harvest began coming in, so we set about building some electric tailoring benches to begin producing parkas for the children in the winter. And then it happened. Our food stockpiles officially hit 0, and once food runs out, oh, how quickly society crumbles. Social fights became extremely common, and mental breaks were happening left and right. To top it all off, a grizzly bear started hunting another one of our children. Despite the poor moods and empty stomachs, we rallied the children once more to march out and fight. 3 of our toddlers fell in the battle with the bear before we killed it. But hey, less mouths to feed, and we gained some bear meat. So, kind of a win-win. We buried the children and moved on, but things were really starting to look bleak, as only 1 month remained until winter began, and the days were getting colder. Over the next few days, the children learned what it truly means to be hungry, as we entered a spiral of harvesting crops, eating the rice as we harvest, and leaving no capacity to actually cook meals. Malnutrition is commonplace, and a spree of hunger-based mental breaks were popping up over and over. In an attempt to boost morale, the colony threw a party, so a brief moment may be had where the children could forget that they were slowly starving to death. Oh boy, what's this? Another raid? Driven by rabid hunger, the children hurled themselves at the raiders, some getting shot, others exploding to grenades, but eventually we overwhelmed them, claimed their weapons for our own, and butchered their flesh. With each raid, our numbers shrunk, but our military potential rose, and our bellies filled. We buried our fallen brothers and sisters and celebrated the victory by consuming pig person bacon once again. Our children were starting to develop a bit of apathy towards one another. Their culture began shifting from one of camaraderie to one driven a bit more by individual strength. Oh look, another raid. Another raid means more food. Several children were gunned down, but the raiders were no match for the snarling, feral children that rushed towards them. While our swarm is strong, a swarm cannot brave the winter. Only individual strength and willpower can do that, and thus, a turning point in our society was reached. The answer to our troubles was staring us in the face this whole time. I was just too blinded by morality to see it. If we were to survive this winter, we would need a society not held down by the shackles of the collective, but bolstered by the power of the individual. Why were we burying our dead brothers and sisters? What a waste of resources. Raider or toddler alike, it was all meat in the end. The days were growing colder, and the children without a parka began dropping left and right due to the extreme cold. Ordinarily, I would have rescued them, but now, if they wanted to live, they'd either recover on their own or feed the colony. I disbanded our doctors, because medical practice means we are admitting we need help. The cycle began. A child would die. That's one less mouth to feed. We'd cook said child, and thus, more food would go around. Social fights would break out regularly as a way to establish the pecking order in the colony. Who was deserving of a meal, and who deserved to become one. Animals began preying on our children for food, and others would stand by and watch. They knew they could intervene, but that would be admitting weakness. If the hunted was strong enough, they'd win and persevere. Truly, this was the second golden age of our colony. A new era of progress, now unburdened by the shackles of modern society. The culling was finished. All that stood were the strongest of our society. It was our time now. For too long, others looked down upon us for being just mere children. We were something more. Our crucible had forged us, and as winter officially began, we marshaled onward for one final battle, pushing to a neighboring colony. When we arrived at the enemy settlement, we filled our bellies on the corpses of those that fell, and then we heroically charged into battle. Weapons raised, war cries screamed, we assaulted the imp encampment, and all died. The children may have fallen in battle, but their legacy and the message brought about by their journey, that it is okay to eat children, will live on in all of our hearts.